Hello, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to my presentation. This is the Puppets, Clowns, and History presentation. My name is Nathan Maker. I am a performer. I'm actually going to treat you all to 3 short performances, different performing art forms that are near and dear to me. You see, when I was a kid, we didn't really talk about the Victorian age or the Edwardian age. All of that sort of got blended together just as the good old days. You knew that there were going to be a lot of grown-ups there having a really good time, and that was very exciting for us kids. I have fond memories of themed amusement parks with historically themed sections to them. Turn of the century was a popular theme. I loved the themed restaurants as well. Going to the Disney amusement parks. Now, when I was very young, we lived on the West Coast, so we did get an opportunity to go to Disneyland, the original, once or twice, and then we were lucky enough to get to experience Disney World as well. And one of my favorite things about the Disney theme parks was Main Street, USA. When you first walk into those gates, you see this amazing broad shopping district from the turn of the century, and the woodwork on the architecture, and a trolley traveling down the street, and the old-time costumes. I loved it. It was so exciting, so exhilarating, so much inspiration. So I really loved that. We also, of course, loved the parades, and oftentimes the parades would start on Main Street and travel back to Frontierland, a historic themed area. This was kind of more the Wild West, fur trappers, gold mining, that sort of thing. And a lot of those memories are just indelible. A lot of the memories blend together and just kind of create this pastiche of all these amazing cultures and things that have gone by. I'd mentioned restaurants, some of my favorites. One in particular was called Shakey's Pizzeria. I don't know if any of you have ever been to a Shakey's. It was very turn of the century. Everybody had the striped shirts and the bow ties. There was a big window where the kids could lean up against and watch the pizzas being made by hand. And Shakey's would, on special nights, have maybe a 3-piece band. Banjo and piano were often featured. On other nights, they might have a movie night. And this is where I think I got my first exposure to the old black and white silent short films. I also love the old straw hats, the skimmers, or what some people call boater hats. I still love those. Another restaurant that we loved as kids was Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor. Again, the same old-fashioned clothes. You would go to where the cash register was that was set up like an old-time candy shop. Another thing I really liked about Farrell's was that player piano. That was just fascinating to me. Wendy's Hamburgers opened up in late 1969. Those old hamburgers and Wendy dressed up as, I don't know what she was, Holly Hobby or something like that. I think even Friendly's Ice Cream Parlor started out with a little bit of that old-timey, turn-of-the-century feel. Now, one other thing that my brothers and I really enjoyed was cartoons, and there were a couple that had some of that Victorian / turn of the century time period injected in. One that I remember fondly was a cartoon version of Around the World in 80 Days with Phileas Fogg and his assistant Passepartout. Very exciting. There was also a cartoon show called Stop That Pigeon. All the characters were chasing after a carrier pigeon. They were flying in old biplanes. And of course, there were other forms of entertainment that harken back to this time period. Ringling Brothers Circus came around every year. Just over the border in Maryland, there was an old amusement park called Glen Echo Park. And you could still see where the shooting gallery was. There were tiny little BB holes in the walls on these old tin targets. And Glen Echo was especially proud of their old Spanish ballroom. So, now I think that I've set up this childhood full of ideas and excitement. Now let's talk about how some of that inspiration started moving itself into some of my later performances. I'd first like to share with you some of my thoughts about puppetry, which is one of my favorite performance arts right now. I've been doing puppetry for more than 10 years. My puppetry company, the Big Shoe Puppets, is sort of a nod to, again, that time period. I've also performed at some fairy festivals, most of the time outdoors, all of the time with puppets that I built myself. But if we just go back to the Victorian era, you're definitely going to see the influence of the characters Punch and Judy, those sort of crude, grotesque hand puppets in a stage that's basically made out of sticks and cloth. There definitely were a lot of traveling puppetry troupes in those days. All kinds of different puppets, marionettes and string puppets and rod puppets, shadow puppets, usually pretty primitive. These shows were put on for adults, by adults, a lot of times by candlelight. Now let's move forward to the era of television, starting to get into my childhood. I watched a lot of Muppet performances on television. Obviously, Sesame Street and The Muppet Show, Muppet films. Really, Jim Henson was sort of synonymous with professional puppetry. The Muppets had appeared on Saturday Night Live, on variety shows since the 1950s, but the big thing was in 1976 when they got their own television show. The old Muppet Show really harkened back to those music hall days at the turn of the century. In fact, they'd even sing some of those old tunes or do some of the joke routines. Earlier puppet performances on television, I was not unaware of the Howdy Doody Show, or Kukla, Fran and Ollie, or Captain Kangaroo. I found out about an old 1950s television show that used puppets called Johnny Jupiter. And here's an interesting thing. One of the names that I use as a steampunk performer is J.P. Porter. Johnny Jupiter Show had a character that was a janitor named E.P. Duckweather. I didn't know this. It's just an interesting coincidence. Yes, I was exposed to puppetry through the television screen, but learning about making puppets really brought that to life in a special way. The thing that really sparked this creative powder keg for me was a trip to New York City. We stopped into the F.A.O. Schwarz toy store, the one that got famous from the movie Big, with Tom Hanks on the giant piano on the floor. F.A.O. Schwarz had a special section dedicated to Jim Henson's Muppets. It was called the Whatnot Workshop. To be able to reach out and touch actual Muppets designed by the Muppet crew, you could order a puppet to be built for you like from a menu, like you'd order a sandwich. I was determined to bring that puppet home and have a little bit of fun with my son. You see, my baby boy had been diagnosed with autism, and verbal communication was really escaping us. But I started thinking that maybe this puppet might be able to get through in a way that his parents couldn't. And you know what? It did in a way. We were very happy about how he could interact and I could interact with a third character that could always be there. It worked so well that I later decided to bring this puppet to his elementary school and do short presentations for the kids in the class about autism. It worked out really, really well. It inspired me to build my first puppet based on a Muppet-style design. I also built a female puppet that I called Miss Judy, after the old Punch and Judy show, and she would perform with me at some of those steampunk events. That was a fun character to play. Later on, I would create a goblin character to perform at some of the fairy festivals, and he was more than a little bit akin to one of my favorite Sesame Street puppets, which was Oscar the Grouch. And most recently, I built a Muppet-style puppet to pay homage to Milton S. Hershey himself, and wrote a short show about the early days of Milton's discovering his calling for being a candy maker and his early days in business. This is what I'd like to show you. I have a video clip that shows part of that Milton Hershey show, and I'm going to share it with you right now. So are you ready? Let's sit back and enjoy a little film clip. I hope you like it. Hey, do you guys smell that? Where do you think we are? We are at the farm where young Milton Hershey grew up with his mom, Fanny, and his dad, Henry. Now, Mom knows the importance of a good day's work. What do you think she'll say the day that Milton comes home and says he doesn't want to go to school anymore? Milton? Milton Hershey, where are you, boy? I'm here, Mama. Well, stop your knee scraping and let's get on inside. You got chores to do. Mama, I don't think I want to go to school anymore. Well, hallelujah and praise the donkey kong. I never thought school was worth a nickel and a plum anyway. Mama, I heard about this thing called an apprenticeship. An apprenticeship? Do you guys know what an apprenticeship is? Well, an apprenticeship is when you go somewhere like a business to learn a skill, like maybe learning how to build houses or how to make shoes. Now, what kind of a skill do you think that Milton would want to learn? Hey, Milton, I hear your dad coming. My dad'll have some ideas. Hey, son, how was school today? Oh, Papa, I don't think I like school anymore. It's hard and the teacher's kind of grumpy, and Mama says that I'm old enough I don't need to go to school anymore. Well, how are you going to learn how to read books? Books make your imagination take flight! Papa, I was thinking about doing an apprenticeship. Ooh, an apprenticeship. That's interesting. Maybe you could work at the print shop in town. Then you could be right there where the magic happens. A print shop, eh? But you know, sometimes things don't work out exactly like you think they're going to, and Milton didn't quite like that job as much as he'd hoped. What's the matter with you, boy? I don't think I want to apprentice at the print shop anymore. It's hard work, and you get dirty, and it's smelly because of all the chemicals. Well, son, I know it can be hard, but today is a day, and tomorrow is another day. So, I'll tell you what, boy. Let's go into town and get ourselves a sweet treat. We could talk about this and make a plan for tomorrow. Could we do that, Mama? Yes. Now, let's head on into town. Well, hello, Milton. Hello, Miss Fanny. Hello, Mr. Royer. Where's Henry? Oh, Lord knows where that man gets off to. Can I get you all some ice cream? Yes, please. We'd like 2 vanillas. I'll get that right away for you. Alrighty then. Oh, Mama, I love this place. Mr. Royer's so nice, and it's so shiny, it smells delicious. Look over there. There's some really interesting people having a really interesting conversation. Oh, Mama, I wish that I could be an apprentice someplace like here. Well, maybe we can talk to Mr. Royer and see how that works out. All right, folks, I got your ice creams for you. Mr. Royer, my son's got it into his head that he'd like to be an apprentice here at your ice cream shop. Well, you know, Milton, I actually would be interested in taking you in as an apprentice. You know what they call candy maker guys? They call them confectioners. Would you guys like to learn how to make candy? Yeah! All right, well, Milton's got 4 years of hard work in front of him, so let's let him get to work. 4 years? All right, Mr. Royer. I'm all finished with my chores. Good job, Milton. The store looks great. Now you know, Milton, you're 18 years old now, and I've taught you everything that I have to teach you. So, what do you think you'll do next, son, out in the broad, wide world? I don't know. Enjoy the rest of 1875. 1876 is on its way. The centennial. It's gonna be a big one out in Philadelphia. Happy birthday, America! Happy centennial! Get your flags here, get your snacks here. There we go. So, son, would you like? Oh, there you are, son. And a flag for you. And oh, you don't like popcorn? What do you like for snacks? Oh, ice cream. That's a good one. Oh, cotton candy. Okay, hot dog. Yes, very good. You know what I like myself? I like a nice piece of caramel. Like some caramel candy? I just happen to know a fella who has the most excellent caramel on Spring Garden Street. Would you like some treats? Would you? All right, come with me. I'll show you the way to Hershey's Candy Shop. Wow, this was a great idea. And everybody's enjoying my candies, especially my delicious caramels. Yeah. Oh, I'll help you there. I'll help you there. Yes, business was indeed good, but 1876 gives way to 1877. What? And 1878. What? And 1879. Oh, and then, well, then the business starts slowing down a little. Slowing down? Yes. I wonder how things are gonna go in the next couple of years, Milton. What do you mean? He's right. There aren't as many people to help out. I'm working 11, 12, 13-hour days trying to keep up with all the demand. And, well, I could really use some help. And I'm running short on money. And sugar and some of those other ingredients, well, they're kind of expensive. So I kind of need some help. Yes, I think you probably do need some help. Yes, I do. So who should we contact about helping you out? Mom! Here we are, son. We're here to help you. Oh, great, Mom. I'm so glad you're here to help. Okay, so you guys work in the kitchens, and I'll start drumming up some business. Okay, here we go. Milton Hershey had to close his doors in his Spring Garden Street store and leave Philadelphia. Oh. You know what? I'm not going to give up. You know what they say? If at first you don't succeed... That's right. Give me my hat. I'm going to keep on going, and I'm not going to give up until I've made my first million. Woohoo! So Milton goes to New York City. New York City! Get a rope! How did things go in New York? Not as planned. Little frustrating, huh? That's 2 businesses he started, not working out so well. Well, keep it up, Milton. I'm not giving up. Don't you worry. I won't give up. Hey, son, how's it going here in your business in New York City? Well, Pop, I'm not going to give up. Tell you what, son. There's money to be made out in Colorado. There's some silver mines out there. Why don't you come with me and we'll get rich together. Colorado, huh? Silver mines, huh? Well, maybe I need a break from all this candy making. All right, Pop, let's head out to Colorado. All right, here we are in Colorado. Let's see, now what do we do? Well, you go find some silver, and I'm gonna make some friends and start talking about books. Have a great time, son. Good luck. What just happened? Silver mining wasn't exactly for Milton either, so he got a job at a candy shop. Yeah, and you know what? I learned a lot there. That's what life is about. You know what I learned? I learned that if you mix milk into your caramels, it makes them softer and delicious to chew and last longer on the shelf. Ah, good idea. Huh, you're mixing milk into your candy. That's right. That sounds familiar to me. But even Colorado loses its luster after a while. Yeah, I think it's time to head home. Back to Pennsylvania. Give me my hat. Here you go. Back to Pennsylvania I go. You know, even though I'm going back to Pennsylvania, I'm not going with my hat in my hand. It's right still on my head, and as long as my hat's on my head, I've got pride. I'm going to hold my head high. I am going to keep selling those caramels. You know why? Because I believe in my recipe. That milk makes them taste delicious. I'm going to go back to Lancaster, and I'm going to start another business. You know what? All I need to do is get a small kitchen, make up some batches. I'll sell it from a push cart. Yes, people are going to love this candy. Ladies and gentlemen, step right up. Taste the delicious Lancaster caramels. You'll be amazed at how soft and chewy they are. Come one, come all. This next segment I want to share with you is going to be about music. Now, I've already shared with you some of the influences, some of the places that I was getting this turn of the century style music that was so infectious. In fact, the idea of the sing-along became very popular in the old Victorian music halls. Now, in a music hall, you wouldn't just see singers, but you might see that. You also might see comedians or variety acts. These songs were so popular that it gave way to a new industry, the parlor music industry. Print shops would print out simplified sheet music of some of the popular songs. So if your family was middle to upper class and you just happen to have a piano, you could actually sing these songs at parties and festivities with your friends and neighbors. Remember I was talking about the Muppet Show? Well, the Muppets also paid homage to some of those old music hall favorite tunes. Jug bands became popular in the 1920s, but that music was actually influenced by a style of music called ham-boning that had come across from West Africa on the slave ships. And these jug bands often used homemade instruments like the washtub bass and the kazoo. The washboard was invented in 1833 in the USA. It was a handy tool if you needed to do laundry, but it also became a popular musical instrument for those who couldn't afford actual instruments. And here's where I'm going to start off my next clip. I'm going to perform a few of those old music hall songs for you, and I'd like you to sing along. One, two, three, go. Well, ain't she sweet? See you walking down that street. Well, I'll ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet? Well, ain't she nice? Look her over once or twice. Well, I ask you very confidentially, ain't she nice? Well, cast an eye in her direction. Oh me, oh my, ain't that perfection? Do-do-do-do. Well, I repeat, that ain't that kind. Well, I feel very confidentially, ain't she sweet? Now your turn. Well, cast an eye in her direction. Oh me, oh my, ain't that perfection? Do-do-do-do. Well, I repeat, think that's kinda neat. Well, I ask you very confidentially. Sweet, well, I ask you very confidentially. Sweet. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer too. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage, I can't afford a carriage, but you'll look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer too. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage, I can't afford a carriage, and you'll look sweet up on the seat of a bicycle built for two. There is a flower within my heart, Daisy, Daisy, planted one day by a glancing dart, planted by Daisy Bell. Whether she loves me or loves me not, sometimes it's hard to tell, yet I'm longing to share the lot of beautiful Daisy Bell. We will go tandem as man and wife. Daisy, Daisy, pedaling away down the road of life. I and my Daisy Bell. When the road's dark and we can't despise policemen and lights as well, there were bright lights in the dazzling eyes of beautiful Daisy Bell. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer too. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage, I can't afford a carriage, and you'll look sweet up on the seat of a bicycle built for two. Now you sing. For my final performance, I want to share with you one of my favorite art forms as a performing artist, and that is the art of clowning. This is pertinent to Victorian days because really the Barnum and Bailey circus was coming into its own in the 1880s. This just happened to coincide with the growth of the Transcontinental Railroad, so the circus could travel by rail all over the country and perform in small towns, big cities, without very much limitation at all. The 1880s is also the time when circus clowns, as we know them today, were first starting to gel. We had what we called the whiteface clown, which was, of course, covered in whiteface with some details drawn on, very classic performer style, and the less classic and more ridiculous Auguste clown, which was a combination of colors, including skin color. It was more of a caricature of human beings and less of a symbolic caricature. And there's another clown that I'd like to talk about. I'm talking about, of course, the silent film clown. My favorite growing up was Charlie Chaplin, the character The Little Tramp. I don't know where I first learned about Charlie Chaplin. Maybe it was at Shakey's Pizza at one of those movie nights, or maybe it was at the Penny Arcade at Disney. But I do remember a fateful year where my brothers and I went to the local drugstore to get one of those Ben Cooper Halloween costumes in the cardboard box with the plastic face. And of course, I found one of Charlie Chaplin. I loved it. I brought it home, wore it for Halloween. In fact, a few years later, the costume didn't fit anymore, so I had to make my own, just using old clothes that I'd picked up from thrift stores, some of my dad's old clothes. There's just something about that character, the walk, the twitchy movements, the way he kind of was poking fun at authority all the time, and the fact that the silent clowns weren't talking. I was a little bit shy, so I was more comfortable being visual than being verbal. So I studied up on Charlie Chaplin. You know, he was the highest paid performer in the whole world at the top of his career. And he was popular all over because you didn't have to speak English to understand his comedy. Film critics would later call the Tramp character the universal everyman. Like there was something about that character we could all identify with. I know I certainly did, and I brought it with me. Years later, I was looking for a summer job after I graduated from high school, and I saw an ad for a local clown agency. I called them up, and they asked me if I'd be interested in auditioning. I said yes. So then they asked me, do you have a clown costume? Well, the closest thing I had was my old Charlie Chaplin suit, so that's what I wore. There was another silent comedian in the 1970s that I was a big fan of. I'm talking about a performer named Robert Shields. He and his partner, Laureen Yarnell, had their own TV show, which had actually grown out of little film clips that people had been taking of the two of them performing in the streets of San Francisco, I think it was. He was interacting with traffic cops, just being hilarious. Very spontaneous, right off the top of his head. Not always appreciated by the people in the audience that he might be making fun of, but I loved that kind of thing, and I wanted to be part of it. I fell so in love with the art form that in 1985, I had the opportunity to audition for the Ringling Brothers Clown College, and against the odds, they accepted me. It was one of those things that I always heard they never accepted anybody on the first audition. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford to go, so the opportunity had to pass me by, but I never lost the excitement. Now I'm going to show you a film clip that I just made especially for you guys, kind of reminiscing some of the old act that I used to do. And I think you'll see a little bit of that turn of the century aesthetic and the silent film feel. I hope you enjoy it. Let's roll the film. So there you have it, friends. There's a few samples of some of my performance art, and I think you could probably see how the history of performance, especially from the 1880s to the turn of the century, definitely saturated some of the work that I do. I hope you enjoyed these clips, and I hope you're having a great time at your virtual Victorian Days event. I hope you're going to have a great weekend, and thanks for watching. See you later, everybody.